Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 521 for the 14th of October 2018. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And in a strange sort of time warp, I'm recording the show early this week. I'm currently at the Australian Skeptics National Convention, Skepticon, hopefully getting lots of reports with Maynard for you for the coming weeks. But it's such a busy week ahead as I record this some days earlier that I'm putting the Skeptic Zone together now, if that makes sense. Coming up on this week's show, an interview with Melbourne magician Mark Mayer I recorded way back in 2005. On a previous podcast show I did called The Skeptic Tank, I interview Mark Mayer about psychic detectives, police psychics, specifically Alison Duvois, who we have not heard about for many years, come to think about it. She certainly had her time in the sun. Her heyday was in the mid-2000s. She might be still kicking around, I'm not sure, but her ilk, the people who think they have psychic magic powers or maybe even don't, who plague police, give relatives false hope, collectively known as the psychic detectives, they're still very much in force. And just lately I've been doing a lot of research into these sort of people. Sadly interesting, if I can put it that way. So yes, an interview with Mark Mayer about Alison Duvois, and you could take this generally to be about psychic detectives from whatever era, whatever age. Following that, once again, here in Sydney last weekend, it was time for Mind, Body, Spirit. All together now, Mind, Body, Wallet. I went along to Mind, Body, Wallet with my friends Lara and Lyndon, and we wander around, and I make some observations that scarcely have changed over the years. Mind, Body, Wallet is an interesting exercise. It was really crowded when we were there. It's quite big. It's worth it to go, as I mentioned in this report. It's always worth it to go along to a New Age festival or fair. You learn an awful lot. And I always collect brochures and flyers from all the stalls, and every now and then we can use those in the form of an official complaint to a government department when we think something is wrong or shonky or in breach of the law or something like that. But over the years we can, and I have built up quite a library of these flyers and information from these peddlers of woo. Then to round off the show, Maynard's Skeptics in the pub, and Maynard's asked the big question, what can you scientifically analyze music? Is there a scientific formula for a hit song? Along those lines, a bit of light-hearted fun with Maynard at the end of the show. So not quite your normal Skeptic Zone this week. I hope you find it entertaining and informative nevertheless. And as I said, I'm really very busy getting ready for the Skepticon, which is on right now. As you hear this, or if you're hearing this on Sunday the 14th, it's on right now. If you're hearing this later, it's over. I hope it was good. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and I think, a fried egg sandwich. That sounds good. While I enjoy that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Now, from the year 2005, I interview Melbourne magician Mark Mayer on a show I was doing at the time called The Skeptic Tank. Mark Mayer is a Melbourne-based mind illusionist. Mark began performing magic professionally at Cafe Crypt in Exhibition Street in Melbourne. He now performs at leading corporate and private events nationally. In his performance, he explores the mysteries of the human mind and brings together a mix of humour, magic, ESP, and mind reading. Mark has appeared on national television, including A Current Affair, Mornings with Kerry Ann, Good Morning Australia, and In Siberia Tonight, as well as numerous radio stations, major daily newspapers, magazines and websites. Before making magic his life, Mark was a Qantas airline pilot. He now combines a pilot's fastidiousness with a performer's flamboyance to great effect and presents his mind illusions in his own unique and trademark style.
Okay,
all right.
Okay.
Now, we better get stuck into the subject. Now, of course, you know, the subject of this Skeptic Tank is psychic detectives, and I believe that you have been researching the subject to some extent.
Well, I have, Richard, yes. Specifically, I've been one called Miss Alison Dubois, or as we like to call her, Alison Dubious. She has been the top favourite right now of the media and one of the most famous in the world right now, calling herself a psychic detective. And so, yes, I did some research and some detailed debunking of her for her recent trip out here to Australia. She was out here promoting her book called Don't Kiss Them Goodbye. So I thought that was particularly distasteful, and the public needed to have a little bit more of a balanced view of what she was about and what the TV show was about and what generally psychic detectives claim and what they claim to be able to do, and sort of hopefully protect people with a little bit more general knowledge about the whole thing. So, yeah.
I noticed that Alison Dubois, when she was here, it was last month or the month before, she certainly had a lot of media interviews lined up, and she'd participated in a lot of media interviews.
And she also hid from a few too, Richard.
Really?
I had a little bit of a media profile going myself. I had, I think I did about 7 or 8 interviews over radio. A number of them were supposed to be at the same time with Alison. I was supposed to be on John Fane's show with Alison, but unfortunately the scheduling, that didn't come to fruition. And there was 2 other ABC radio interviews that we were supposed to be on at the same time and have a little head-to-head. However, mysteriously, she got sick for both of those interviews and wasn't able to participate. But yes, there was quite a bit of media interest, and it was unfortunately all very soft interest. They gave her a completely free ride without any critical interviewing at all. Her series of TV shows, which was called Medium, was based on basically a series of misleading claims and innuendo, and that was all done to create a false position of credibility and authority. It means that the series was created by her claiming that she's worked with police and claiming that she's a criminal profiler, claiming she's a research medium, and then those claims not being really questioned or anything, and from those claims then being able to make a actual false credibility, like, I'm an authority on this subject, and then from there a whole TV network and studio making a show about it. It really quickly unravels if you put a little bit of scrutiny to it. She, as most of the psychic detectives, offers not a single shred of verifiable evidence, and I can get specifically to some evidence that she does claim to have in her book, Don't Kiss Them Goodbye, which we'll come back to, which is a really interesting piece. It ends up being the same old anecdotal stories and accounts made up by her and her associates with no actual follow-up proof.
The media, especially the tabloid media, the last thing they're going to do is question that. As far as they're concerned, it's absolutely true.
Well, it's absolutely true, and plus it's great for business. See, this is one of my contentions with the psychic industry. Psychic phenomena throughout history is a wonderful business, and now with our modern media with radio, television, internet, and reality TV, etc., psychic shows, psychic informations, anything psychic is big bucks. You look at any time Oprah has anyone to do with psychic or connecting to the side. It's a huge bumper show. So the tabloids want to perpetuate any myths and want to perpetuate any things like this purely because it's great for business with no responsibility, really. And I just must preface something here that I just remembered. Everything I'm saying now is prefaced with, I believe, due to any litigation or anything from the think tank having to bail me out of the High Court of Australia. Everything I say is, I believe these statements to be true. Whether be sued or anything else, well, that's
the management and staff do not necessarily take any of that.
Exactly.
So tell me more about what you perceive to be the case.
I perceive to be the case. Well, Alison has 2, and most of the psychic detectives are in the same ilk as this, so I'm not just talking about Alison, but most of them claim some very major claims, and hers specifically are as follows. She claims to be a criminal profiler and a research medium. Now, both these words are even carefully chosen to create, again, as I said, credibility and authority. When you call yourself a criminal profiler, that means that you gives the image of I'm someone who knows what criminal profiling means, and therefore I must be qualified to do that job. She's not a criminal profiler, not by the slightest measure of a criminal profiler. The actual term criminal profiler comes from the FBI. They invented that term about 30 years ago. And it's very, very basic form. To call yourself a criminal profiler, you have to have studied forensic science or psychology or police investigation methods. And according to the FBI, if you're going to be a criminal profiler, according to them, then you need advanced degrees in forensic science and in behavioral science. Plus you need 8 to 10 years experience as an FBI agent. And then if you have all those things, the FBI still spend another about 500 hours specialist training.
Good heavens. Well, I'm sure she's done all that.
Oh, I'm sure she's done all that. And according to the FBI, there's only about 30 qualified criminal profilers in the United States. She's not a qualified criminal profiler. This is what she says. I am a profiler, blah, 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 blah. I'm a criminal profiler. It's the first thing she says in the book, the first thing she says in all her interviews as part of her claims. It's a falsehood, and she's not. She even gives, in her own book, an example of what she concedes as a criminal profile on page 31. And she outlines, this is a criminal profile. And then she goes into it saying, I had a feeling of connection to California, and they liked this and that, the other. No, they're not criminal profiles. That's a psychic reading.
Wow.
And a psychic reading is not a criminal profile. So the first and foremost things, Alison Dubois is not a criminal profiler, nor is any other psychic detective who claims to be a criminal profiler.
Yep.
What it is. And it is not in any form or shape or form a forensic, a psychological, or police investigation or behavioral scientist background. So that's just gone straight out the window. So there are actual proper steps to call yourself these things, and this is what I mean is this is the real deception that the tabloids and the media perpetuate and that she wants to create. And this is really fundamentally important because some people may see this as being swept away and not that important, but this is the fundamental. Credibility and authority is everything in media, and credibility and authority is everything when you actually want to talk to someone.
Yep.
Like someone may ask me, what is my credibility or authority, etc., etc., and I need to either prove those claims or go away. And when you just say I'm a criminal profiler, it sounds like we understand that. The TV show, it sort of looks like that. We've seen movies like The Profiler, and we know what that sort of means. Wow, she's one of those. My God, that gives her, again, credibility authority. But it all unravels when you realize that she's not. And she also claims, and this is the next one I get to, she has academic power behind her because of the proving of her claims. So she has this arrogant strength of saying, I have a lot of people believe me and a lot of powerful people behind me, and so therefore I have the authority and credibility again to say all this, which is just a falsehood. It's really, really sad, and the media mainly won't want to challenge that, and those who do actually need to do a lot of homework to be able to do this. So unfortunately, unless the media engage someone like yourself or myself or someone from a think tank or someone who has done some actual credible investigation and research and comes from a position of knowledge, they will actually never challenge any of these people successfully because they won't have the depth of knowledge. And it's as simple as that.
I guess they wouldn't know what to ask. Anyway.
They wouldn't. That's exactly right. They wouldn't know what to ask, and they wouldn't know what to challenge when they do things. That comes to my next point, which I'll bring up now, I guess.
Yeah.
When she claims to be a research medium, and she says that, the tests are really hard, etc., etc. She says that. She doesn't get challenged on that point because no one actually knows what the tests are. None of the media interviewers know what those tests are or Dr. Schwartz's tests are because they haven't seen them.
I seem to remember the same thing happened with Uri Geller, eh?
They don't know what these tests are. They don't know, so they can't argue. So the media will not produce a balanced point of view or a balanced interview because since they can't do the homework for it.
Right.
Anyhow, this is point number 2, research medium. So she comes out, and most of them do, but her specifically says, I am a criminal profiler, point 1, and point 2, I'm a research medium. Even those words Richard had chosen really specifically. She doesn't call herself just a medium. I'm not one of the old ones from like the 1840s when they started out hearing bumps in the night. I'm not one of the old ones who are sitting in a dark seance tricking people with ectoplasm. I'm not one of those old ones who have a room full of people in a studio screaming out names and stuff. No, I'm a special medium. I'm a research medium, which gives, again, as I keep coming back to it, I know this is a recurring theme, but it sort of is a theme, credibility and authority. She's not just a medium. Alison Dubois is a research medium. And she claims this because she has scientifically proven psychic abilities. That's what she claims anyhow. And when you want to research this a little bit further, you find quite a little bit about. Her claims are that at Arizona State University in the Victorias, I can't quite pronounce it, but it's Veritas research program, over the last number of years, 4 years I think it was, she scored between a 74 to a 90% accuracy on all her tests.
Wow.
Which sounds very impressive. Here's a little detail that she doesn't tell you in any of her interviews and that none of the media know. Alison plays an active role in directing and executing the tests. So that's an analogy of, let's have a bunch of schoolboys, like I was a beautiful, perfect schoolboy when I was 15, and let me set the test with my friends, then let me supervise us doing the test, and then let me mark the test later. Do you think I might get between 74 and 90% accuracy?
I think that was my mistake in high school. Maybe I should have done that.
Look, I know I'm being a bit facetious, but this is actually by her own words. If you look at her, this is not stuff I'm making up. If you look at the last page of her book in her own handwriting, it says, Alison takes an active role in the direction and execution of the tests. So this is not just me making this up. I can verify this in her own words. That firstly puts the scientifically proven psychic abilities into question.
Yeah.
But let's look at who does these tests. We have a man called Dr. Schwartz. He's a funny man, to put it nicely. Dr. Schwartz is very academically qualified PhD. That means he's academic and he's book smart. That's fine. That's very good. Dr. Schwartz has an emotional and financial investment into these tests. He has an emotional because when you read his interviews, etc., you know that, well, he wants a success in his tests. No research scientist wants to do tests and continuously fail. So he has an emotional investment and he has also a financial investment. And that also has a slant on this scientifically proven psychic abilities. He has a financial investment because two things. One, if these tests aren't valid or don't come up with any sort of accuracy, well, the tests get cancelled, you don't get funding. And also, he has a financial investment because he has a number of books he wants to sell, he has his own lectures he wants to sell. So you do not have an independent person without an emotional financial investment testing her for a start. That's the first part of Dr. Schwartz. Let's look at these tests. This is really, really important. This is a real crux of the matter. Anyone can be tested, but how are they tested? Firstly, when they meet Dr. Schwartz, they have to do a reading on Dr. Schwartz. And then from there, if he decides that they're pretty good or whatever, they'll go on to further tests. Now, her first test with him is counted in her book and also numerous other places. She sat down with him and did a cold reading on him and mentioned that someone or friend of his that had died didn't walk alone. From this, he interprets that, that means my friend who died, who was in a wheelchair, blah, 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 blah,
who didn't even walk.
Who didn't even walk. Now, again, he's doing the general, as most of our listeners will know, the cold reading, the sitter makes the information fit story.
Oh, yes, and we've got a whole episode devoted to cold reading in our next episode, so listen out for that.
Yeah, listen out for that. I won't spoil that, but she's doing essentially basic cold reading, and he's falling for it, but he wants it to work. And it does work, because he can make her little statements fit into it. So that's the first part of the test. Okay, the second part of the test now, which is really important, is that they do sitters, and then the sitters have to rate their readings. She said on the John Fane show, Alison Dubois, and the sitters don't mark easily, they mark very hard. Well, I would like to contest that statement by reading something to you from Mr. Schwartz, or Dr. Schwartz's own test. And remember, Alison just said that the people do not mark hard. I'll give you some examples. If the medium says the cause of death was drowning, and in actuality the cause of death was drowning, this is called a hit.
Right.
And the sitters aren't allowed to just answer, yes, that was close, or no. They are bound to go by these scorings, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the medium says, I'll just say Alison, and then I'll say sitter, so you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Alison says the cause of death was drowning. However, the cause of death was pulmonary edema, pneumonia, or emphysema. This is called a fit again.
What?
As in correct, but with a mild interpretation. Now, I don't know whose decision that is a mild interpretation or this is where science goes straight out the window, because a mild interpretation is an arbitrary, is a subjective thing that they're making up now. Okay, let's move on. If Alison says the cause of death was drowning, but the deceased died in a bathtub, but not from drowning, i.e. maybe she had a head shot off with a shotgun, but it was in a bathtub, that's called a fit as well. That's called correct.
I see. So it's really hard. It's really hard to miss, isn't it?
Well, I'll keep going and I'll give you an answer to that. If Alison says the cause of death was drowning, but the cause of death was an indirect cause from a terrible rainstorm, Okay, example, you're driving in a car, it's raining, you crash in a tree and burn to death, but Alison said you'd cause of death was drowning, then that is correct with a stretch of interpretation.
A stretch?
Yeah.
Mighty big stretch.
Big stretch. If Alison says the person died of drowning, but it was a close friend and not the person named, then it was a fit other, which I don't know what that means. And if it says here, if the cause of death, if she says it was the person drowned, but the person died of lymphonia, well, then that wasn't a fit. And if you do the maths here, it comes up that 84% of the statement is correct. So as you just said, it's very hard to get it wrong.
Yeah.
So that means if Alison said the person died of drowning, 84% of anything will count as a yes.
Good heavens.
And now I bring you back to the first thing I said. Research medium.
Yeah.
Credibility, authority. Scientifically proven psychic abilities. Alison on John Fane Radio said that they rate really hard and it's not easy. Well, I contest that, Alison. I rate that 84% of what you say can be clicked as correct. So it doesn't matter what she says.
Yeah.
Alison can say anything.
So they really want her to pass the test.
They want her to pass. There's no way you can fail a test like that.
Yeah.
And if she only gets 34% right in that, I think she's doing very poorly.
Let's ignore all that. Because she also says, and now I'm going to put you on the spot here. She also says that she's worked with the Texas Rangers. Now, how can you dispute that?
Well, she does, and the only way to dispute that is to ask the Texas Rangers themselves, which I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh.
I spoke to the Public Information Officer, Lisa Block, and they stated flatly that they've never worked with her. In subsequent askings, Alison has said, yes, I have, and they met me there, and it was just like the TV show. Well, this has to come back down to she said, he said. Alison claims that she's worked for the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers themselves say, no, we never did. You've got to decide to believe someone.
Well, I wonder who I would believe in that situation.
Well, especially when it comes up again when she said she worked for the Glendale Police.
Yeah.
And the Public Information Officer there, Michael Pina, says we also haven't worked with her as well. She also said she was training to be a district attorney for the Maricopa County's Attorney's Office. She wasn't. She was an intern working for the Maricopa County's office as a paper shuffler, and that's where it all started, because she wasn't studying law. She was studying history. I've got it here somewhere in my little ideas. I can't remember exactly. She was studying, I think, history and something else, and I should know this off by heart, but I don't know this off by heart. She wasn't studying law, but she was working in the office doing paperwork and was handling photos of victims of crime, that she suddenly got these flashes and how she suddenly knew where the bodies were and all that sort of stuff. That's what the story goes.
It also amazes me that after her whirlwind tour of Australia, haven't heard a peep. Not a peep. Where's all the crimes she's just solved in the last week? And
exactly. Well, that's exactly the thing. The whole TV show is made up of the first one, and then the first show, which was the Texas Rangers, and the second show, which was the Glendale Police. After that, they're all loosely based on things that have happened in her life. Well, I'd say what things? Things she dreamt up, they're not based on fact at all. Look, there's a few things interesting about her and Psychic Detectives I should cover just quickly for you. Is that okay?
Yep.
In my opinion, and this is again as I believe, that these psychic detectives, her and the others, deliberately target high-profile cases for gaining their own credibility and authority, and particularly missing persons and victims of violent crime. This sells really well to the public, and it sells really well to our, I guess, fascination with death and dying, as long as it's not someone close to us. So they make good money out of it, and often the best heartstrings to pull are children. And you'll notice with the Beaumont children, Daniel McComb, Carmen Chan, they've all done these cases on that other disgusting program, Sensing Murder. However, no one's been found, there's been no television follow-up saying, wow, from Carmen Chan's show from Sensing Murder, we've now found from that evidence. These shows are self-evident that they're full of rubbish because there hasn't been any follow-up of any discovery.
Nothing.
They're proving themselves that they don't work.
They've gone strangely quiet. On all those Sensing Murder shows, there's been... you'd think they'd come back and say, well, it's been 2 years now since the first episode, and gee, we haven't found a damn thing.
And the dreadful thing about this, apart from the so-called info entertainment that this ends up being, those that are desperate and emotional are sitting there hanging by this terrible thread, hoping that maybe there's something to have here. People forget for a moment, and when you're watching Psychic Detectives or seeing Alison Dubois, this is not the real thing about this, that there are people out there suffering probably the most dreadful grief there is of their children or their wives or daughters missing or murdered by people unknown, and then waiting to find out what happened. And these people are left in this desperate emotional state and this vulnerable situation, and these psychic detectives are claiming all sorts of things and exploiting them to the max, which is just so dreadful. And they say, we don't do it for a fee. Of course they don't. They do it for profile. And they get such a profile out of it. You look at any of the women's magazines, etc., they've got those guys, Russell, whatever his name is, etc., making themselves famous and making themselves wealthy out of these people's misery and pain, which I think is just so aghast to anybody who's got any value of life.
It's true, but you know that misery and pain have always sold well in history.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. But, I mean, I've got nothing against a good horror movie, because you can choose to go to that, or a scary movie, or even a good horror book, or a criminal detective fiction show. You have a choice of dialing in or dialing out of that. And we know it's fiction, and horror and pain will sell. But when you start capitalizing on this, it just gets so wrong. But she has a go at skeptics, and it's interesting, along with what they say. She says skeptics, and a lot of these psychic detectives say the same things, that if we don't believe in an afterlife and we don't believe in life after death, well, I can't help you. Well, not all skeptics believe that, and a lot of them have their own private thoughts anyhow. And to package all skeptics in the same thing is, again, by her, very, very convenient to put us all in the same spot.
Oh, it is very convenient. And then, especially when she's on the chat shows and whatever, she can write off the skeptics in one sentence.
One sentence, and then that undoes it all. But I'll throw back a few things at her. Firstly, she loves throwing words at the skeptics. She uses the words, skeptics have vile, repelling energies. And that's on page 116 of her book.
I didn't know I had a vile and repelling energy. I don't have another shower.
She talks about another famous moron skeptic on page 100. And she says, so this is nice name calling, so that's good. And she says on page 112, and I cannot believe proofreaders didn't fix this up, she says, remember, it was skeptics who insisted that the world was flat.
Oh, yeah.
On 112. Alison, I think you got that 100% the wrong way around. It was skeptics who said the world was round.
Or at least the skeptics questioned if the world was flat. That's right.
Yeah. So on page 112, she screams that skeptics are such bad, nasty people. And remember, and I'm just turning to the page here because that's from my memory.
Oh, yeah, I see, yeah. Looks like a good book.
112, she says, yes. These are and angry skeptics are the same people who insisted the world was flat.
Angry skeptics.
Angry skeptics are the same people who insisted the world was flat. Well, Alison, that is wrong. That is so funny. It would be funny if it wasn't so sad. She also claimed that, Randy with his $1 million didn't exist, and she can't see that it exists, etc., etc. And while I was doing my interviews, I went actually to the 990 section of the IRS, which is the Internal Revenue Service's paperwork for where they keep all non-profit organisations' paperwork and tax returns. And I went to the tax return and I looked up James Randy's form, and it has James Randy and his yearly salary there, and under, I think it's section 30 or 64 or whatever, there's the $1 million sitting there for anyone to claim. Yep. So she claimed it wasn't real, etc. This is her answers to
they all claim that. They all claim that it's not real, and Randy's having them on, but it's there and it's legal and it's documented.
It's legal, and she's also said that he'll be broke if I prove him wrong, etc. And I said, well, for the radio interviews, I said, no, he'll still get his pay because there's his paycheck there for every year, and plus he'll even be more famous. So, she's been living this story since she was 6 years old. And she's exposed her family to it, and she has fame in television shows. She is married to this story completely. So whatever we come up as skeptics, we're not going to actually ever convince her or the hardcore, but we will be able to maybe attack and crumble some of her major claims to the rest of the thinking public. She's not a criminal profiler. She's not a research medium. She has not solved any cases, nor worked with law enforcement. As most psychic detectives, she's based it on targeting the most vulnerable people, and she has no answers for the skeptics. If that answers a few questions for you, Richard.
That's fantastic. Well, Mark, thanks for coming into the tank today. It's been great to talk with you. I hope our listeners got a lot of interesting benefit out of that.
No, it was an absolute pleasure, Richard, and thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best for the tank and all the people that listen in.
Hi, this is Dr. Pamela Gay from Astronomy Cast. Each week, Fraser Kane and I take our listeners on a fact-based journey through the cosmos. With our weekly podcast, we explain not just what we know, but how we know what we know about this universe that we share. Check us out at astronomycast.com and look for us in iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you download podcasts. See you online.
It's the 7th of October 2018. I'm here at the Darling Harbour Exhibition Centre in Sydney, where once again it's the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. That's interesting. I'm just sitting outside the entrance now waiting for Lara Benham from the Australian Skeptics to accompany me. You know, in the past this has been called the Festival of Mind, Body, Spirit. Now it's Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. I'm sure that makes a difference. And I think I might have mentioned before that in years past, of course, you had to pay to get into this. Recently, it's free. From a marketing point of view, it makes good sense because they want to get people in the door to buy whatever products or services are on offer. Lots of people milling in at the moment. It's a wet old weekend here in Sydney, and soon I'll be diving into Mind, Body, Wallet once again. And as ever, I recommend it's worth for any skeptic at least once to go to a New Age exhibition or festival. Yes, wandering through Mind, Body, Wallet now. What do we got here? Sort of angel readings? That looks nice. I'd love to have a reading with an angel. Energetics, whatever that is, healing body and mind, it says. All sorts of wonderful things. Advanced stem cell nutrition. Might be worth getting a brochure for our friend Dr. Brad Mackay. Rare earth crystals. It's a wonderland, folks. One of the lessons I've learned, and it's taken me years and years and years, and really only this year it's hit home, that you have to pick your battles. So I'm walking down these corridors now and all sorts of woo, right, left and centre. And you do have to pick your battles. You can't just turn up and start arguing with every storeholder. I just passed one offering me a turmeric detox. And I said, oh, I've got a liver for that. And then they started to engage with me. I thought, no, what's this skin detox? So, you know, you can't. As much as I would love it, part of me would love it, it doesn't get you very far, and it's far better just to gather information, maybe have a polite conversation, say, how does this work and what do you do? Because remonstrating and arguing with them, especially at a place like this, will get you precisely nowhere. It may even get you kicked out, which has happened before. What's this one? Metaphysical mysteries. Lots of crystal pendants. And we turn the corner, and my goodness me, this is a never-ending maze. It goes on and on and on. Crystal connections, angel guide art with reading. Free prayer, Jesus is the answer. Oh well. Yoga. Sometimes I'm lost for words. And a blast from the past, a pyramid. Somebody is sitting under a pyramid with a crystal on the top, and directly behind them, so behind my back, is the Orgon Effects people who a couple of years ago called security on me to get me chased out. Oh well, they're still here, so I won't engage with them. Now, it might amuse you to know that there's also Lady D psychic parties. Psychic party. One boggles the mind. I'm also reminded that when I come here, how many of these stalls offer health advice and healing and pseudo-medical products. This thing will help this thing will cure this thing, largely based on testimonials, of course. And for years I've wondered why this place simply isn't raided by the health department. because stall after stall after stall here are making medical claims. No matter how they use weasel words to pretend they're not, at the end of the day, these people are making medical claims. And we're passing the oldie but the goodie, the psychic reading room, which is a big open area. And I'll try to give you, oh, that's handy. That's handy. There's actually a wall here of the psychics who are in the room. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, so I guess in the vicinity of 50 people here, so-called psychics, and it's $50 for 25 minutes. And there's a queue. And, oh, we're right opposite the Church of Scientology. There we go. And all the younger people here with their Scientology t-shirts on doing the personality tests before they get out at some stage. Well, year after year after year, the Scientologists are here, and I know the battle goes on. I guess it's occurred to me now that despite everything that we throw at them, and all the other people here too, they're still here. Now, we have our victories along the way, and we shouldn't stop. But the general New Age movement is still strong, and it's like the Hadra. Is that the name of the serpent with all the heads? The Hadra? You cut one head off and 7 grow, or something like that. Hydra. Yeah, it's like the creature from mythology, where you cut off one head and 7 more grow. But don't be. I'm not sending a message here to be downhearted. I mean, we do what we do, and we can reach people who may be on the fence, but it's an odd line, you know, some of us have chosen in our life. Maybe a past life therapist could tell me more about it. Back to my earlier point. Yes, don't be discouraged, because you learn so much here, and you certainly make yourself... you certainly can become a better skeptic when you know what you're talking about, and you can understand why people are saying what they do. One of the biggest enemies our movement has are the so-called skeptics who just say, I don't believe anything, you're all stupid, how can you believe this rubbish? Well, of course people can believe anything, and they normally have, at least to themselves, good reasons for believing things, even though that reason might be faulty. So treating people who buy into this thing as fools is so counterproductive. And of course, many of the people who peddle it are true believers, but amongst them are the sharks, the knowing con men and women, and sometimes it's hard to tell them apart too. It's interesting to note that one of the psychics I'm analyzing at the moment with her in respect to the readings she does, because there's lots of those on YouTube and TV appearances and whatever, has a big presence here this year. She's got 3 booths, some on completely opposite side to the others, and with staff. So it gives you an idea that to many of these people, regardless of their motivations or what they believe in their heart of hearts, it's also their livelihood. It's a business, which is another reason that you can't just come into these places and start remonstrating with them and telling them they're wrong. Apart from the fact that they'll think you're a complete nut, you're also encroaching on their livelihood and their business. It's something that we should always keep in mind. Well, Lyndon, we've escaped Mind, Body, Wallet. We've come next door to the home show. Now, you spent quite a long time with the Church of Scientology.
Yeah, I did indeed.
Let me rephrase that. Here at the festival, you sat down and had a personality test.
I did, yeah. It was a stress test, and I'm very stressed.
Do you have a personality?
Well, no, that fell flat when they asked me about my personality.
And you were telling the young lady who you were talking to about the volcano, I think.
So she was trying to sell me the Dianetics book,
yeah.
And on the cover, in very bright colours and certainly not evocative of stress, was a giant volcano, of course, as that. I believe that's one of the central premises of the thing. And so I asked her what the volcano was for and how that got to do with relieving stress, and she didn't really know. It's fascinating.
She will. I mean, She'll either stay with them long enough to find out, or she'll leave and then discover.
Yeah, she does some research of her own, say by watching, I don't know, South Park.
Words of wisdom, Lyndon, thank you.
G'day, this is Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, proud to be a skeptic, and you can find out more about me at drkarl.com and get lots of free stuff there as well.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Welcome to Skeptics in the Pub. This is a bit of a warm-up act for the big Skepticon that's going to be breaking over this city. Sydney is currently sleeping skeptically. They don't know what way up reason is, but they will know when Skepticon hits later in about a week or two's time, and I'm going to run around everything. I'm looking out a vista of wet Sydney. I can see people in their soggy underwear waiting at the bus stop thinking it was summer. But here at Skeptics in the Pub tonight, music is on the agenda. And we haven't thought of a sceptical question to ask them yet, but I have a few sceptical questions to ask you about music right now. Right said Fred.
Right said Fred.
What is the answer? Right said Fred, question mark, is the question we'll be asking people tonight.
What is the question of right said Fred?
What is the point? What is the very question of right said Fred? That is one of the questions I'll be asking people. We'll be talking about music, and of course, as well as that, the work of Shudo Echo cannot be ignored, or Village People. You're going to see the cut of my musical jib tonight, if they'll let me. So we will be asking people tonight, is there a formula to music? Is there a science to that formula? Can you actually apply a formula to music and have it come out right? Well, I would say yes, and I would use as Exhibit A anything by the Pet Shop Boys. There you go. Now, don't you mock me, Saunders. Sure. Look, I can tell you right now that there is a formula to creating a pop song, and I use as an example for this the Pet Shop Boys. That's a really good example. Really good example of stuff. Also, an example might be Dancing Queen by ABBA. There's no aphrodisiac like Loneliness by the Whitlams, because both those songs start with the chorus. Both of those songs start with the chorus. They don't have any intro or anything like that, and that is a successful pattern for that sort of thing. Well, what do you think? Do you think there is a...
I'm wondering if you've tested that hypothesis. Do all songs that start with the chorus, are they always...
Oh no, they aren't always successful, but huge... Well, it is a gambit that sometimes works, but you see, so it could be in the formula, just not as big a number as the other ones.
So it increases the chances.
It could increase the chance of. I mean, come on, no aphrodisiac like Loneliness and Dancing Queen are cracker tracks.
Absolutely. I don't know one of those, but the other one, yeah, great.
I'm thinking maybe Blockbuster by The Sweet actually starts with, maybe that starts with a chorus as well. That is basically, yeah, that's a bit of a callback, that kind of thing. That's an example. Now, have you got any thoughts on this one?
Well, you see, are you defining their status in pop history by how good they are, or whether they're an earworm?
Well.
Because we were just discussing Toto.
Oh, Africa, which I kind of liked until recently, when I just thought, oh, come on, look, they must have another song.
Well, they probably do. I mean, we're going to find out, hopefully, in January. But is that objectively a good song, or is it just very, very memorable? That's the thing. And I think that goes with a lot of pop, is it's just very, very repetitive, and it gets in your head.
Look, you've immediately gone...
Somebody wants to...
You're immediately getting into Right Said Fred territory. They're another good example of the greatest British pop band of all time, Right Said Fred, without a doubt. And so, yeah, what's an example of a song you think might be a formulaic one? Have you got one at all? Because you're a music girl.
Look, I don't know, but I was going to say, I have heard that there's certain, series of notes or chords put together which apparently the human brain likes more than other ones.
Oh, the Batman theme.
Okay. I'll go with that. Yeah. So maybe if you include something like that, stick the chorus at the front like you said.
I'll get working on that there. So actually, is there a song that you think is an example of that?
I think most of Kylie generally fits.
The Stock Aitken and Waterman stuff.
Exactly.
Great story about that, because Kylie turned up for the Stock Aitken and Waterman, and she has said in interviews, and to me, it's quite clear that they had forgotten that she was coming, and they said, just wait in reception for 15 minutes, and she's pretty sure that during that 15 minutes they went away and either found in their bottom drawer, I Should Be So Lucky, or wrote it in 15 minutes and then recorded it. And when you listen to I Should Be So Lucky, she might have a point.
That is completely unsurprising.
Yeah. I mean, come on, they were pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, you know...
those guys own actual trains now. They have so much money, they own trains. They buy trains. They have their own
rolling stock.
Yes.
Aitken and... Yeah.
Whoa! Yeah. That's funny. I like that. Yeah. Well done there. Yeah, true.
Trains.
Sorry, I left the conversation for a second.
You did.
Because our food was ready.
And now we're on to trains.
Okay, well, look, we'll talk about this later, but thank you for your input. Okay.
It's about music.
I know, we're over here with here's someone who knows their music. Hello, sir, how are you?
I'm all right, yeah, how are you?
Well, pretty good. We've been talking about the formulaic nature of music, and is there a formula to music and that sort of thing. People have strong opinions. People are going down to the supermarket and vomiting with what they hear coming over the music. How do you feel about there being a formula, a scientific approach to writing songs and music?
Certain bands do follow a very strict, very formulaic, very predictable pattern. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sure Lara might have mentioned her favourite band of Trollhorgan. Very, very formulaic. You should check them out. They're pretty great. I'm not very sarcastic either. Yeah, I listen to a lot of atonal music where it sort of just sounds like random notes, but then you go and see it live and it's exactly the same as the album, and it's amazing.
So they intended it?
Absolutely.
So what's an example of a song we might know that you think fits a formulaic pattern that you go, right, there's the formula, look at it go?
Oh, there's some good Meshuggah numbers I'm sure everyone's heard of.
Not me, but I'll go with it.
We've got like Some or Bleed. Yeah, all of those ones.
Okay.
Some pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, okay. And do you think if they diverge from the formula too much, the audience gets unhappy?
Yeah, obviously.
Because the last thing an audience wants is to be challenged.
Yeah, I mean, it usually counts as selling out if a band changes in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a real risk, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Look, and I've been in bands where you get popular and you get to a certain point where you've got to break with all your fans and actually move to the next level, and that's where most bands falter.
Well, why would you break with your fans intentionally?
Oh, well, because you've got to get to a wider audience. So to get to a wider audience, you sometimes have to compromise, or the actual act of becoming popular, the fans leave you because they think you've sold out, even when you're doing exactly the same thing, you've just got popular.
But that is selling out.
If you're doing the same thing and more people like what you're doing, that's not actually selling out, it's just an evolution.
But why have you broken with your fans then?
Well, because the fans, because they see you getting more popular, and they don't want to be with something that's popular. They want to be with something that's cult.
Right. So you only ever played hipster music.
Yeah, apparently, and then as soon as it started getting popular, they went, we'll have none of this, even though it's exactly the same as what they were doing last week. It's changed. You've sold out, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there is a formula involved. I'll let you get back to your chicken burger there, and thank you. And I believe we can see you in the pop charts fairly shortly. We can hear your stuff down the supermarket.
Absolutely. It's about to happen.
Look, I'm with Tim Mendham at the bar. Where else would you be with Tim Mendham? But I have been asking about a formula to music, and you've come up with an effect in music you think works, and it is the answer.
I think it's an absolute assurity that when you have phasing, which is also called flanging by some people, right? Yes, that it's
it's actually built into most DJ decks now. You can actually do it. Yeah.
Once upon a time, it was done by the producer or something with all sort of tricky little diodes and triodes and that sort of stuff.
And an example of a song you definitely would have heard it in would have been "The Real Thing" by Russell Morris. But you've got a few other examples.
Well, Ma, Real Thing. Yes. Itchycoo Park was a famous one.
Yeah.
Itchycoo Park was sort of the first time I heard it, and some people have said that's the first real one. There was a period of Australian music in the late 60s, early 70s, when almost every record was phased. Heard an Australian version of Nights in White Satin, but the whole thing is phased.
Wow, okay.
I know. And it was obviously the thing to do here, especially.
Look, I see our person who's talking tonight is setting up an oscilloscope there, which is a pretty nerdy way to approach music. I think we're going to have an interesting evening.
I think it's going to be very techy, actually. Yes, I know. Oscilloscopes, things that go beep.
Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Maynard. Okay.
I'm just sitting next to Heather here, and the power of podcasting has been proven because you were on our show as a first-time listener only the other week. How has your life changed?
Dramatically. I cannot walk in the street anymore. It is just hectic.
I believe you're now doing endorsements for Ford and CompuServe, things like that.
Oh yeah, the endorsements have been rolling in. I'm having a hard time filtering them. It's, like I said, it's kind of stressful at this point.
And for all the people that always get worried about having a microphone put in front of them here, has anything bad happened? Have your friends heckled you, made fun of you, pushed you over in the street?
All of the above, but, it's all in good sport.
Oh, good, okay. And were you happy with your own voice? Because most people, when they hear their voice, they go, is that really me?
Yeah, I had a moment for sure.
But did you get over it?
Well, you have to get over it. You can't take yourself too seriously.
There you go. I think that's your answer there, Richard. So basically, her life has changed for the worse for being on your show.
Yeah, that's the standard story, I'm afraid, Maynard.
Yeah. Instead of thanks Obama, it's thanks Saunders.
Thank you, Saunders.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone this week. And where are they? Oh, yes. Somewhere in my little tray here, I've got the... there it goes. I've got the 10-sided die. For those people who don't listen after the music, you'll never know what that means. You'll never know. Coming up on the Skeptic Zone next week, the first in our series of interviews and highlights from Skepticon, including things like who won the Skeptical Awards, like the Bench Spoon Award and so on, and interviews with speakers and attendees. And I know Maynard was, depending on when you're listening to this, busy with his microphone getting lots of interviews. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Hello, all the people who listen after the music, the afterthought, or the afterthoughts. Here's an afterthought. I've got a 10-sided die. Let's have a go. I'm going to roll it 3 times. Shaking that now, so use your predicting power. First go is 4. Plane coming over. Well, that's good timing. I did most of the voiceovers for this week before the plane started. 4. I'm shaking it again. Here we go. Predict away. 10. 4, 10. Next number, last number is... And remember, if you get all 3 correct, that's 1 out of 1,000. 4, 10, and 10. 4, 10, and 10. How did you do?